Okay, so what is the end game for the narcissist? You have to wonder. It's like a lifetime spent of just completely torturing people, causing chaos, causing destruction. Just a full life dedicated to that. And you have to wonder, it's like, well, what do they ultimately want? Like, what is the outcome? Like, what do these people want? Do they even know what they want? And I think they do. And I feel as though I am witnessing it with my parents. And they've been together for 50 years. I'm I'm in my 40s. They got together like a little bit before I was born. And my mom's the raging narc, my dad's the enabler, but he's definitely like, her victim for sure. He's like her little blood boy. And I've watched a very interesting pattern play out over the years, and a very specific technique and tactic that the narcissist done to him. And it's extremely powerful, and it's basically shelved him. Like, he's done, man. And it's isolation and alienation. And I was thinking about it, and like, he's literally had no friends my entire life. 40 years, 44 years. I've never seen him have friends over for like a barbecue, or go out and hang out with friends, or, you know, friends call on the phone, like, hey, how you doing? The only people he's ever, I guess, really been allowed to spend time with has been like his brother. His brother comes around every once in a while, and they talk on the phone sometimes. And sometimes, like, he'd visit. But I've never seen that man have a social life whatsoever. And I was thinking about that technique and that tactic of alienation and isolation. And previous nurse girlfriends I've had have definitely tried that on me. They've tried to alienate me and isolate me from my friends. But it kind of never worked because I've always been in bands, and I've always been super social, and I've always kind of had people orbiting me. So I think they tried, and just by default of my nature and my lifestyle, it couldn't work. But what my mother has done to my father is complete isolation and alienation. So you think after 50 years of doing this that we might, I might be witnessing the end play, the end game of the narcs. This literally could be it, because they're in their mid to late 70s, and you get up there, and your health and your age, and it's you don't have much longer. And the situation is so sad, where he's like, number one, he's a prison in his own home, and he has this routine where he just kind of he works, and then he comes home, and maybe they spend some time together, and then he like goes to his room, and he's just in his room, and it's a pretty big house, um, and I think he just tries to isolate himself from her so he doesn't have to deal with her so much, because he really just hammers on him. And I remember it was last year. It was Christmas, and we went over there and did our, like, little thing, our little half hour visit, and my wife and the kids and I left, but we left something there, like a sweater or something, and my wife, we just live across the driveway. She walks back to get the sweater. She knocks on the door, and like no one answers, and she, you know, opens up the door to grab the sweater, and it's like a ghost town, man. Like, they literally, you think Christmas, like, the house is alive, people are cooking, it's exchanging gifts, and it's a good time. She opens the door, man, and like they're gone. Like, she's in her room or she's wherever, and he's in his room, and they're just like, yeah, nothing. And you think, it's like, how, like, that's no way to live, man. Isolated from any potential friendships you could have, isolated from your family. And he's so isolated that he won't even come over to our place, because he's decent. He's been her enabler for so long, and obviously the enablers are just as guilty as the narc, but he is a nice person, and he genuinely doesn't want to cause people harm and trauma and destroy their life. And so I have tried numerous times to like get him to come over and like have a barbecue and hang out and have burgers or whatever, and he just will not do it. He won't leave her orbit. He's like gravitationally stuck to her. And when we first moved in, him and I were like really starting to bond, because I got this wood shop going for us, and I cleaned up their big shop space and was planning on starting a woodworking business, and he wanted to do that too. And we spent a lot of time out there cleaning the place up and remodeling the inside. I brought in all the tools, and man, everything was looking like really good. And I didn't realize it, because we chose to move to my folks' place unknowing of all this NAR stuff, and it wasn't until I was there and started really getting hammered that I was able to figure this out. And so at the time, I didn't know what my mom's thing was. I didn't know like how dangerous she was. And she'd come out there, man, like every day, and she'd be planting these little seeds of like, oh, your father, like he's up to something, and oh, he's racking up the credit card, and your father, and your father, and but it was interesting, because she sensed, number one, that him and I are starting to connect, and she probably felt him slowly pulling away in some way, and she had to get in there and alienate him and isolate him. And it was like battleship warning sign, like I have to go sink the other enemy ship. I was like the enemy ship, and she had to just like torpedo me. And she did it in such a manipulative and calculated way, by planting these seeds in my mind about how he's doing all these things, and it's really affecting her, and she doesn't feel confident, and they might lose everything because of him. And I remember her really going for it. And then of course I'm so naive, and I'm under her stupid spell, that then in turn I fall for it, and then I'm throwing negative vibes at my dad over what he's doing. And yeah, he's like he's doing stuff like racking up the credit card, and doing things that probably he shouldn't be doing. But like, he is so depressed, man. He's like locked in this prison with her, and he's been in that prison for 50 years. And it's like that's her ultimate play, is to get people so they're fully alienated from any potential relationship they could have, and she just has you, and you're just like the whipping post, the blood boy, whatever, and she just sucks you dry, and then like gives you some rest, and then you kind of re-energize, and then she sucks you dry again, and it's just that cycle. And I think that's the ultimate play. And I think she has this, so she's like on this mission. She has this delusional mission currently where I called her ass out and was like, either it's respectable, mutual respect, or there's no communication, there's no dealings with you. It's that simple. And of course, she couldn't handle that. But she went on the warpath against, first it was me, but nothing she could really do. But now she's really turned on my wife. She's going on the warpath with her, but there's nothing she can do, man. She can't get in there, because like our family, my wife, the kids, it's all love. Like it's super simple. It's all love and good vibes, and she can't get in between that. But I think she has this delusion in this world she's trying to create, where she causes conflict between my wife and I, and it causes us to like split. And then she has me to herself, and then she has the kids too. I think that's another alienation and isolation delusion that she has in her mind, because I could tell, like I get a sense from her just intuitively of things she's trying to do. But it's not gonna. There's no way it can work. I mean, we are like, we're so clear and sober minded, and like I said, it's all love. And she's like out to lunch, man. As these narcissists get older, and their mental capacity slips, and like, their physical capability and just everything, like they slow down. Plus, she like chiefs like a chimney, man. She's grows weed in her garden, and has like jars and jars of weed, and is just like chiefing joints constantly. So she's kind of in like the state of psychosis. But it really shows how powerful that is when you could take a decent person and alienate them from any kindness that they could have in their life, any kindness, any love, any connection, and you could really execute that for decades. And the big question is like, all right, so who goes first? And then what's the impact it'll have on the other? So say if my dad passes away, what's the impact it's going to have on the nurse? Most likely, because my brother's a golden child, she'll just lean on him, and he'll become her, like, I've heard this phrase, the emotional husband, and he kind of is that for her already, because my dad is like super checked out and super depressed, and he just wants to escape and be in his bedroom all the time. So she'll probably just lean on the golden child. But the wild card is like, all right, this enabler who's fully alienated and isolated and tethered to this like demon beast, if she dies, like what happens to him? Like what mental thing clicks in there? Like, okay, either the spell is broken and he's just like, boom, he's alive and himself again, and then has some kind of quality of life, or it's like too much, and the spell he's been under it for so long, and the spell it's like her passing just destroys him. Like, he passes too. If she's gone, like his world ceases to exist. And that's the thing to really think about. Because I remember, because couples, you're together for so long. I remember my friend's parents died together, and his mom got cancer, and she died like real quick. And they were young; they were in their 60s, like late 60s. And man, she got cancer, and in like a few months, she was gone. And then the dad, like, he like lost it. And I remember seeing him, and he was, I could tell he was in a rough spot. I saw my buddy and his dad; they were out trying to like be out and socialize and everything. I could tell something was up. And then boom, he gets cancer a month later, and then he dies. And so I understand, it's like that strong connection you have with the person you spent your entire life with. But if like the person you spent your entire life with has completely drained you and made you miserable, and alienated and isolated you from any type of positivity or connection you could have, like that person dies, like, does your world end? I would think the spell would be broken and it'd be like party time, like finally now I can just relax. But I don't know. So it's strange to think about that, and it's sad for my dad. But with all of this stuff, it's up to the individual. It's up to him. If he wants something different, I mean, he's got to be the one. And we try to give him good vibes as much as possible. But he just kind of further checks out, and that's kind of how it's been the last several years. And I don't know how it's going to play. But I can see, that being the end game for the Narc is just alienate as many people that they can, alienate and isolate, and they just become stuck to the Narc, and then they just have their way with them. And I think that's the ultimate. And then they just can execute their delusional, plan day in and day out, and then they're happy. They're fulfilled. That is the narcissist life fulfilled. What a fucking waste, man. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this. It was on my mind, so I wanted to share it. Anyway, thanks for your time. I always appreciate it. Have a good one.